Hey, what's up everybody? Commander Radix here, bringing you another video, and today we are starting episode 3 of the Symbolism of Transformers series, my series where I look into the sort of phenomenology of Transformers, comparing it to certain metaphysical traditions, especially that of Orthodox Christianity. Watch episode 1 and 2 before watching episode 3. This is part of a 7-episode mini-series, right? I'm not asking you too much by going back and rewatching the older episodes before you go forward into the series, especially episode 1, where I explain the framework of how this series works. But at the end of episode 2, I mentioned how the Transformers are sort of mirroring the war in heaven. They're sort of participating in the pattern of angels and demons, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now first we need to talk about the concept of angels and demons, these spirits we see in many metaphysical traditions, especially Orthodox Christianity, which is going to be the lens I'm going to do this series in, although if you're from any sort of metaphysical tradition, you probably have analogous concepts. So sometimes the popular image of angels and demons are going to be something like, you know, some sort of blonde-haired woman wearing some sort of gown with wings on her back and a halo. That's an angel. And then on the other side you have a demon, which is going to be like some sort of goblin-looking guy with little bat wings and a pitchfork and horns. And one's good and one's bad, and that's sort of the popular conception of angels, that they are these sort of mythological beings that have physical bodies, right? So that's why, because that popular notion is there first, I kind of want to take it back to sort of the Orthodox tradition and how it views angels and demons. Angels and demons are inherently, they're not two different species of being, they are all what we could call spirits. They're all these non-physical entities, immaterial entities. The belief is that when God created creation, He assigned certain powers, principalities, spirits over particular characteristics of the universe, of certain natural phenomena, of natural bodies, things like that. And so these spirits went out to basically do God's will, to help keep creation together. And when a spirit is acting in accordance to God's will, that would be what we could call an angel. Yes, I know the word angel technically means messenger, and we're not going to get into hierarchies of angels or anything like that today, but that's what the spirits, what angels are. They are immaterial, they are vast. The way Father Stephen DeYoung talks about them is they are vast cosmic intelligences. Now sometimes you'll see the biblically accurate angels on like Reddit or something, and it's like this monstrous, many-winged, several-eyed thing. And yeah, there is an iconographic tradition of describing them that way. That is how they are described in the Bible when they appear sometimes. Sometimes they also just look human, right? But at their core, at their usual mode of being, angels are immaterial. They don't have a physical body. Now, at the same time, they do not have an infinite body. So there are boundaries of their body, but we're talking about the immaterial plane at this point. You know, we can't really understand how they work in that way because we are material beings with finite bodies and well-defined bodies. Now, like mankind, God created these spirits with free will. And to summarize a lot of events that happen in the book of Genesis, some spirits use their free will to go against the will of God, either outright rebelling against Him or refusing to do the role that God had assigned for them. At this point, those angels, those spirits who have used their free will to go against the will of God, we would classify as demons. Not as a genetically different species, but in the same sort of spiritual being that is doing a different role. Now, how do we interact and engage with angels and demons in our everyday lives? Most people watching this video, if they're from a atheistic or non-metaphysical background, which I assume most people watching these videos are, but you might think that you've never really encountered an angel or a demon, or maybe you might say, well, once upon a time I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye in the darkness or something like that. But that's not really how angels and demons work in tradition. It is the Orthodox belief that angels and demons interact with humans in so much as they have humans do something that is either for or against the will of God. Now that's a lot of words, Commander Radix, but what does that actually mean? Can you give a more concrete example? Sure. Many of you have probably stood from the top of a building, or in some sort of height, a bridge or something, and while you were up there you might have looked down. You know, just to see, oh wow, look at all that land underneath me, or water underneath me, or whatever. Now some of you might have experienced, especially the closer to the edge you get, you might sort of feel this tug in the back of your head, this almost a voice, not a clear voice, but I'll metaphorically describe it as a voice, telling you, yo, jump. Right? And you know that's stupid. That's not good for your self-preservation if you jumped off the side of the building. So you can recognize that thought and go, that's weird, I'm not doing that, where did that come from? In psychology, these things are often called intrusive thoughts. These are going to be thoughts that really don't align with our values, they really don't align with how we see ourselves or the world, or against our own ambitions, desires, and wills, or sometimes they feed into those. But these thoughts that pop up in your head that don't really feel like they're your thoughts. In the Orthodox tradition, those intrusive thoughts don't come from inside your head. Your head receives them, and we will talk about this later when we talk about the nous, but the idea in Orthodox Christianity that how we engage with angels and demons ultimately comes from thoughts being received. The voice in your head telling you to jump off the building, in Orthodoxy that's considered the demons. When you're holding a baby for the first time and one thought in your head is, yo, I bet I could throw this like a football. Right, that's a demon. And I think I used the example in an earlier episode. Like, you see someone at the train station walking by, their wallet comes out of their pocket. At that point, you got angels and demons all up in your head. You got angels saying, get it and give it back to the person. You got a demon saying, get it and hold on to it. That's your money. You have a demon saying, just leave it there. He'll figure it out. It's not your problem. Right? All these thoughts in the Orthodox tradition are not created, do not originate from inside your head. Now, one thing people know about the angels and demons is their war in heaven, and we're not going to get into the specifics of that whole war, but the angels and demons are at war. And wouldn't you know, we've already talked about in episode 2 how the Autobots and Decepticons are sort of like saints and giants, and to take it a step further, because they're coming from the heavens, because they're coming from space, they are like the angels and the demons more specifically than they are like the saints and the giants. There is a clear phenomenological connection between the Autobot and Decepticon war and the war in heaven, the spiritual war that we go through every day here on Earth. And I thought we could talk about how the Autobots and the Decepticons model their phenomenological companions, as it were. So how do the Decepticons model demons? Well, they do in many ways. For one, they're evil. Right? They're evil. And it's like, well, Radix, how do you measure evil? Well, the church traditionally defines evil as the absence of the good, the absence of God, right? And demons are breaking away from God, breaking their communion with God. And so the Decepticons, as phenomenologically representing the demons, are evil. They are anti-life. They destroy life, whether that be human life, other Cybertronian life, alien life. They'll destroy nature, they'll destroy planets, and they'll even destroy themselves. They have a tendency for infighting, which we'll also talk about a little bit more later. The Decepticons are deceitful. It's in the name. Decepticons, right? Deceitful, deceptive. They betray, they lie. And those are all anti-good, anti-logos actions. Just in the same way that the demons tell us, hey, take the wallet, it's yours. The person who dropped it doesn't know. It's not going to hurt anyone if you just take the wallet, right? Deceitful. Now, conversely, how do the Autobots act as angels? Well, they are watchful protectors. They look over the Earth. They try their best to protect the humans from the evil influence of the Decepticons. And you even have a little bit of a guardian angel sort of concept being brought in, especially with the main human kid character, whenever kid-friendly Autobot happens to be in that show. So, for example, the big example would be like Spike, Witwicky, and Bumblebee. Bumblebee is operating very similar to a guardian angel, an angel that is specifically dispatched to look over a specific human. You see that kind of more clearly in the Michael Bay movies, with Sam Witwicky and Bumblebee. Another thing to think about is, order and hierarchy, right? Especially in the modern day, we might think of hierarchy as a bad word that we don't want to touch. Well, that's not traditionally how order and hierarchy were seen. Order is seen as a good thing compared to chaos. And hierarchy is also connected to order. It's organized, right? So evil, chaos, is going to be non-hierarchical. So let's think about it like this. Do we have any symbols of order in the Autobots? Well, we have Prowl, right, who is a police car, who represents law and order, but also notice that Prowl, especially in original G1, isn't really a tyrant. He's not overbearing, right? Prowl is very much representing that original concept of order. And there is a clear hierarchy in the Autobots. Oftentimes they have clear command structures, and there's no mistaking who the leader of the Autobots is. They have the rank of Prime, right? Optimus Prime. It's very easy to look at the Autobots lined up and go, yeah, that guy's the leader, if you just look at Optimus Prime. And it's also very easy to look at a list of the names and go, yeah, this guy's the leader with his name Optimus Prime. And the Autobots tend to accept this order, right? They very rarely, unless it's like Grimlock or someone, have any power struggles. Compare that to the Decepticons, and especially in the modern day, we might associate hierarchy with tyranny, and we associate tyranny with the Decepticons and the demons, right? But if you look at hierarchy in the Decepticons, it seems to be more top-heavy. The Autobots tend to go along with the hierarchy system in their unit. The Decepticons tend to be... the leader is like beating them into submission so that they follow them, right? That's not exactly order. That's a different type of chaos in a way. And the Decepticons themselves don't seem that satisfied with the hierarchical system of the Decepticons. They each think that they should be in charge. In a way, kind of reflects the anti-hierarchical values of today's society. You can make an argument that individualism and post-Enlightenment thinking is basically Decepticonism. I refuse to elaborate. The most clear example of this is Starscream, right? Starscream's always rebelling against Megatron. He always thinks he should be leader, but we have other examples. Other Decepticons have tried to take over. Marvel Shockwave, for example. Marvel Scorponok, for example. Marvel, and especially Marvel G1, likes to have a lot of Decepticon civil wars. But these rebels are always prideful, they're always infighting, and they're always tyrannical, which not only is phenomenologically and typologically showing the relation between the Decepticons and the demons, but very specifically, that pattern is a satanic pattern. That is what Lucifer did. That is what Satan did. He did not like the idea of the humans, these lesser beings, being destined for greater glory through Christ, right? He went against that idea, and so he rebelled against the order God created because he was so prideful. Likewise, compare how Satan views the humans and how the Decepticons view humans. Like, it's very obvious that this is the same pattern. And often the same reasonings are used by both. Oh, we're better, we're superior beings, you're tiny little flesh creatures, you guys don't even have immaterial bodies. Which brings us to the humans, and I want to talk a little bit about what I mentioned earlier about the noose. I'm not talking about the things you use to hang people with, I'm talking about the noose, N-O-U-S, which I think means like mind or something like that. But in Orthodox Christianity, right, we believe that thoughts are not generated. Just like how our eyes work, just how our ears work, our nose, we receive information, we receive sights, we receive sound, we receive smells, and our brain is a receiver for thoughts from the angels and demons. Now, that doesn't mean that if I'm just walking down the street one day and I get the thought, oh, you should kill that guy that's walking beside you, and then I kill them, that doesn't mean I can get arrested but say, I'm sorry, judge, but a demon made me do it, so I'm innocent, it wasn't me. That's not how that works. There is the idea of the noose, and this is sort of at the core of who you are in a way. The noose is your ability, is your immaterial organ in a way, to receive information and discern what you should do with that information. For example, there is a sun outside. I could stare at the sun. I could make the choice to stare at the sun, and when I go blind, I think most people would say, Radix, you are phenomenally stupid. But I'll say, the sun was there. The sun blinded me. I didn't blind me. And it's like, Radix, you made the decision to stare at the sun for 5 hours. So likewise, the nous is our ability to take those thoughts and choose which thought we're going with or what to do with those thoughts, to observe those thoughts. And if we don't want to do anything with those thoughts, we can watch those thoughts fade away. This is part of the reason why hesychasm and things like contemplative prayer are very important in the Orthodox tradition. Sitting in silence, clearing your mind, receiving thoughts, and just simply watching the thoughts come and go. Usually your nous is going to be pretty strong against ridiculous ideas like, hey, I should jump off this bridge. Or, hey, I should toss this baby like a football. It might be weaker to things like, maybe I should keep the wallet for myself, right? And the idea of Orthodox Christianity is, through communion with God, we are strengthening our nous to be able to resist the ideas of the demons and more clearly understand the ideas from the angels, things like that. You're not a bad person because you get the thought of throwing a baby. Just completely involuntary. If you do it, then you're a bad person. That's Orthodox Christianity. Now, let's compare that. How do humans interact with the Transformers, right? Now, almost always, working with the Autobots is going to be the best option for humans in a Transformers series. That doesn't mean they might not get into battle with the Decepticons or might not fall into danger every now and then, right? Flash Forward to Spike Witwicky stuck in Unicron about to be dropped into a vat of acid. He wouldn't even be in that position if he hadn't worked with the Autobots, right? But usually working with the Autobots is the best option. Humans working with the Autobots rarely ever regret it, right? And usually those are the main characters we're following. Now, humans also have other reactions to the Autobots and the Decepticons, to the war in heaven. You have some humans that work against the Autobots out of pride, so they're fighting against these angelic beings, phenomenologically speaking, and often against the Decepticons too, thinking they don't need the angels, they don't need the demons, they can just stand up on their own 2 feet and be their own person, and they don't have to get involved in this war. If anything, they can be a third power in this war. That doesn't go so well. Take, for example, Chumley, who goes against both the Autobots and the Decepticons out of pride, right? He literally wants to capture Optimus Prime's head and mount it for his own glory, right? He is as prideful as they come, and things don't go so well for him at the end of that episode. Because these, again, sort of tying back to episode 2 as well, but these are beings, these are powers that are much more powerful than we are, and even if we try to stand on our own pride, it usually becomes our downfall. Now, there's also the option of the people working with the Decepticons, which is interesting that you see this more often in G1 than in any other Transformers fiction. This really connects to my idea from episode 1 that G1 is Orthodox Transformers. That it's really playing into these patterns more so than later generations. But yes, sometimes humans work with Decepticons either because the Decepticons are deceiving them, or they think they're deceiving the Decepticons, or they're trying to have a mutual deal where the human gets something out of working with the Decepticons. These are very clearly patterns that we can find in things like the occult, Satanism, and even paganism. The idea that you can talk to the spirit, the lowercase g God, and there's this more powerful creature, but if I just get on their good side, then maybe they'll do something for me, right? And it's never something like world peace or something. It's always, oh, I want to pass this exam, for example. In Japan, we have temples and shrines to specific deities that are supposed to covering the academic sphere, and if you want to pass an entrance exam, you go and pray at that shrine. It's usually for worldly benefits is the point. Not so much if you go to like a divine liturgy in an Orthodox church, where we pray and the litany really help and good things for almost everyone except us, with a few exceptions towards the end. And even then, our prayers for ourselves are like keeping this day without sin and a Christian ending to our lives. These aren't exactly, we want money, right? We ain't praying for money. So let's look at some humans who work with the Decepticons. Dr. Arkeville comes to mind. What did Arkeville want? He wanted to control the world. So he was willing to work with the Decepticons, the demons, to get that control. How did that work out for him? Not well. What about Sean Berger, who did even did even worse. He sold out the world because he wanted to be the mayor of Central City. Alright. You know, we start off with Arkaville, who wants the world, and then, like, as time goes on, we get, you know, Burger, who wants to be mayor. Wow. Sells out his city to the Decepticons. You know, we're watching Transformers G1 and thinking, that's silly. Why would you trust the Decepticons, right? Why would you do this? Why would you force the Autobots to leave Earth or whatever? But then you remember, Judas sold out Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for 30 pieces of silver. Yeah. And then, if you want to think even more deeper, when you sin, you are betraying Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for free. Some things to think about. But yeah, so all that to say that the human patterns of interacting with the Transformers very much is reflective of how human beings interact with the spirits. Which fits when we make that connection that there is a war in heaven between angels and demons, and how that's phenomenologically, symbolically reflected. I forgot the name of the series was Symbolism of Transformers. Symbolically represented by the Autobots and Decepticons. Now, next episode, we're going to continue with the theme of the Transformers as symbols of spirits. Today, we kind of focused on their role, how they functioned as spirits. Next episode, we're going to look at how they're spirits in a sort of pseudo-physical way. In a metaphysical way, the Transformers are kind of like spirits. Join me next episode when we talk about the spark and the symbolism of the spark, and we're even going to get into some Gnostic ideas. Ooh, scary. But that's going to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Follow me on social media. All the links are in the description. And have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I got a message.
Well, I wanna be the hunter, not the hunted.